to it. First, we have to start at the lab leak problem, and the committee that's looking into it shut down. Here is video of that happening. And again, we're being picked up by foreign people who watch foreign things. Wall Street Silver says, breaking, Liberals and NDP shut down the investigation into the Winnipeg lab that was infiltrated by Beijing. Justin Trudeau needs to resign immediately. Immediately. Here we go.
For that reason, I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Point of order.
Mr. Chair, I request a recorded vote on this. Thank you.
That's fine.
Mr.
Chong.
Point of order.
It's
point
not,
of order, Mr. Chair.
On a point of order,
yeah.
it's not debatable what Ms. Khalid just...
I just want clarification to the effect of what Ms. Khalid has moved is to shut down debate.
I'm so sorry,
debate.
Chair,
That's
but
debate.
no, I refuse
That's
to
debate.
let
That's debate, Mr.
this 106 floor to become political gander for
Ms.
my
Khalid, I've already addressed
colleagues.
that with Mr. Cooper, and
Thank you.
and for those who are watching at home, this is a dilatory motion to stop the meeting before a decision is rendered. So I am going to ask the clerk. It is non-debatable. Mr. Chong has asked for recorded division, and I'm going to ask the clerk.
Sorry, Chair. It sounds like you're debating a little bit there.
No, I'm explaining. I'm explaining, Ms. Khalid.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I'm explaining exactly what's going on here, and that there is no further debate. That you have asked that this meeting be adjourned without a decision of the committee being made. I'm explaining.
Because this is not the mandate of the committee, Chair.
That's your opinion. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
The vote is on the motion to adjourn the meeting. Mr. Baines.
Yes.
Ms. Damoff.
Yes.
Mr. Sorbar.
Yes, please.
Mr. Hauswater.
Yes.
Ms. Khalid.
Yes.
Mr. Cooper.
No.
Mr. Chong.
No.
Mr. Ellis.
No.
Monsieur Villemur.
Je suis contre.
Mr. Green.
Je vote pour la motion.
Yeas 6, nays 4.
So the motion to adjourn does carry by Ms. Khalid. This meeting is now adjourned.
And there you go, protected. I think that there's some kind of standing order that says if somebody initiates an adjournment and you're in the NDP Liberal group, you just can't say no. Wild stuff. Straight Goods says there is no political solution. Hear me. There is no political solution. So Mr. Surveillance is showing the same video. Liberal Intifada Minister Ima Khalid, with the help of the NDP crackpot Matthew Green, shut down the committee seeking to investigate the Winnipeg virus lab horror show. Never seen this country been hijacked by so many unabashed criminals. Wow. That's pretty wild stuff just to watch that get shut down and watch everybody walk out of there. Whew. Crazy stuff. Because there's obviously a big problem. There's obviously things that need to be investigated and gotten to the bottom of, and these people are covering their own butts by shutting down these committees. Wild. Holly Doan's reporting the same. Liberals and New Democrats MPs by 6-4 vote block ethics committee probe of why cabinet concealed the report into Chinese security breaches at the National Microbiology Laboratory. So you can see the readout if you're interested in all that. Link is in the description. David Mulrooney says Liberal NDP block proposed examination of national security breaches at infectious disease facility. Among the questions Conservative Bloc Québécois MPs want answered is why the government did not catch the clandestine activities of Dr. Key before 2018. So she was behaving in ways that were odd, to say the least. And why weren't they caught beforehand? And there's more. I've got more on what she was doing beforehand as well. But first, we've got this Michael Cooper video to go through. Here is Michael Cooper, and he's very, very angry. It's 3 minutes. We're not going to listen to the whole 3 minutes, but he's very upset, and I think it bears watching. So here is Michael Cooper talking about what just happened at committee.
You won't believe what the NDP Liberal cover-up coalition did earlier today. I'm at the Ethics Committee where hours ago, NDP and Liberal MPs at the direction of Justin Trudeau voted to shut down committee to block consideration of a Conservative motion to hold hearings on the massive national security breach at the Winnipeg lab and Justin Trudeau's efforts to cover it up. These hearings are vital, especially now that after 3 years, finally, the Winnipeg lab documents have been released. For 3 years, Justin Trudeau tried to hide these documents from Parliament. In an unprecedented fashion, he defied 4 orders of Parliament and its committees. He even, for the first time in Canadian history, took the Speaker of the House of Commons to court to hide the documents. That's the lengths to which Justin Trudeau went to cover it up. And he said that it was all about protecting national security. That was his excuse. But we now know that Justin Trudeau lied. According to the conclusions of 3 retired federal judges who reviewed these documents, they said it had nothing to do with national security and everything to do with an effort by Justin Trudeau to save his government from embarrassment in the face of a massive national security failure.
We'll leave it there. That's about halfway through. Okay. So, yeah, massive national security failure. We should resign this committee. Yeah, let's resign this committee. All in favor? Us, NDP Liberals. So they don't want to get to the bottom of it. Melissa Lanceman says the NDP just voted with the Liberals to shut down the investigation into the Winnipeg lab national security breach. The NDP is protecting Justin Trudeau from political embarrassment instead of protecting our national security. The cover-up coalition is not worth the cost or the corruption. So they've got a really good job on the branding, right? It's always branding. Even when Pierre Poilievre makes announcements in the House of Commons, branding first and then announcement. Michael says Canadian spy suspect led viral research project in Wuhan during the same time the virus is believed to have leaked from the lab. So Qi, the scientist's Qi Chang'o or whatever her name was, not Chang, Qi, the one in charge of the Winnipeg lab, not her associate. She was also in charge of the Wuhan lab, doing specific virology research at the time. Wild. So Andrew Coyne says, jump in Jehoshaphat. Are other people trying to revive old-timey phrases like holy smoke other than me? While working on Canadian and superstitiously transferring, transferring lethal virus samples to China, Zheng Qi was enlisted to lead Wuhan Institute of Virology's synthetic bat flavovirus project. With the Institute's vice director, a senior Chinese scientist that worked in 2015 on a controversial United States hybrid version of a bat coronavirus. This explosive evidence, yet to be reported from hundreds of redacted documents released this week by Canada's government, suggests that Zheng Qi was likely working directly with the Chinese virologist at the center of the COVID-19 Wuhan lab leak theory, Dr. Shi Zhengli. Quote, what is refutable is that WIV secretly hired Qi to advise the Wuhan lab on biosecurity, train its lab workers on safety, and employed Qi precisely because she was the only Chinese scientist in the world with access to a level 4 biolab outside China. And he says, I'm beginning to think that the reason the Trudeau government went to such lengths to prevent the documents from coming to light might not have been to protect national security. Right? Like, I'm shocked. Shocked, I tell you. I'm not that shocked. A CSIS investigation continues, Andrew. In 2021, found Ms. Qi was listed as being in charge of overall planning for the Wuhan laboratory animal infection program that was to run from June 2019 to May 21 with a budget of 250,000 Chinese yuan per year. The Wuhan lab secretly sponsored Qi's application to work surreptitiously with the People's Liberation Army in a program called the Thousand Talents Plan, which extracts civilian research from Western nations for Chinese military use by paying foreign scientists under the table. So, man, it's like the Vancouver method, but for intellectual property, like scientific-y property. So that's interesting as all get out, right? Very interesting indeed. True North is reporting Conservative MP Michael Chong calls out Trudeau's health minister Mark Holland for allegedly misleading Canadians over the Wuhan microbiology lab. And so here's 44 seconds of that. Here we go.
What about the security of the lab now? Are you satisfied that the lab is adequately secure?
The question is, what about the security of the lab now? Are you satisfied that the lab is adequately secure? So I don't think you could hear that very well. And I'm going to adjust the volume if he's too quiet. So here we go.
No, I'm not. And the reason, and that's another reason for this examination by Parliament, Minister Holland has contradicted some of the information contained in the documents that were released last week. He has said that there were no actual breaches at the lab. He's also indicated that no information left the country. That's contradicted many times in the documents that we received last week. And that's why we think Parliament has a job to do here in order to dig into this matter further, to understand what has gone wrong, and to issue a report with recommendations.
Everything has gone wrong. There's nothing that's going right in Canada at this point in time. Absolutely nothing. I don't think there's any one file that's not completely on the dumpster fire that is the Canadian Parliament. Is unimaginable. But the meme on today's show cover does kind of a good job. But it's one of those things that I like. I've been talking about the Hydra, right? Like the multi-headed beast that you have to fight, and each head is like gender ideology, and the war in Ukraine, and then the war in Israel, and whatever. The whole thing. If you engage with one, then you're completely consumed by that one battle. You can't fight all seven heads. It just doesn't work. And so it seems that there isn't one institution, there isn't one anything, university, municipality, library that isn't completely rotten to the core, where we need a complete rethink. Like, hold on, you may think this, but that's not true at all. This is actually true. And let's move forward now with the understanding that this is actually true. It's a really tall order, I understand that. But we have a rot in our society, and the rot is continuing, and they're using that, the powers that be are using that as a wedge, the rot as a wedge, because people either don't care, are completely apathetic, or if they do care, they care because of motivation paid off. And I think that the Black Lives Matter protests are an example of that. The current Israel-Palestine protests are an example of that. So, they don't actually care, but they'll do it to get paid. That may be their job, right? And there's all sorts of situations like that where the dilution of society, the dilution of the culture leads to a really, really tough time in being able to solve the problem, because there's not the agreement with society that this is a problem that needs to be solved and we need to move forward. There's going to be a lot of people who are actually pretty okay with how things are because they're benefiting from it, like monetarily or whatever. And so those people are going to put up a fight, just like the people in power are not going to just walk away from the power that they have and say, oh, I guess we were wrong about whatever, and you guys didn't actually want us to turn Canada communist. Sorry about that. They're not going to walk away. They have power, right? So they're going to keep the power as long as they possibly can. Although, after last night's by-election, it looks like their time is running short, right? It's a slow-moving train, but it's coming. Duncan is responding to Mark Holland. Mark Holland is talking about we cannot have people begin spending money in private systems. This is private. I want to talk. Hold on, we'll do this one first. I wanted to highlight this clip first. Canada's Minister of Health says the mRNA vaccines were a miracle of science. I'm not usually a judgmental person, but I wouldn't take the health advice from someone who can't pronounce mRNA and with a head shaped like that. I don't know about the head shape, but this whole taking medical advice from politicians who don't know you is faulty, I think, in my opinion. And the idea that my health is reflective on the community, to a degree, right? Like if you have healthcare that's not accessible and you have a whole bunch of rundown, like people who can't access healthcare and they're injured and things like that, then yeah, there's like a reflection of your society there, right? But my health shouldn't be a barometer of the health of the quality of your health. Does that make sense? Like, if I'm unhealthy, it shouldn't mean you're unhealthy, right? It should mean that your health is your responsibility and my health is my responsibility. This communitizing of health is really, really concerning to me, because they're going to use it as a wedge, and they're really good at using wedges. And one of the hallmarks of a wedge, and I'm going to talk about this later in the show, talking about the religious wedge that's being driven right now. The Black Lives Matter and the Palestinian protests are paid for protests. And the Palestinian one is actually more effective because part of the one of the hallmarks of something like this is you get so blinded by getting caught up in the emotions of it that you can't see that it's astroturfed, that it's fake, right? You get so caught up in the emotions that you look past all of the warning signals that you can see with your eyes, and you say, well, that's this or that's that or whatever, anti-Semitic, Islamophobic, whatever emotion you want to get wrapped up in. But that's what's driven on social media. They push the emotion and they don't talk about the facts at all. And it's very interesting. Anyway, here's Mark Holland talking about this.
The vaccines that happened during the pandemic, but whether or not they're mRNA or not, are a miracle of science. They saved tens of millions of lives. And so the fact that that's been politicized is deeply concerning, and we're seeing the effect of that. So first and foremost, I want to take myself out of that conversation and just really refer people to their health professional, to their health teams, to their doctor, to the nurses to talk about making an informed choice for their health, and just ask folks to keep their vaccines up to date, because the consequence of not doing that can be potentially disastrous to the health of them as an individual and to communities as a whole.
So ask your individual doctor for your individual, needs and all the rest of that. But also get vaccinated, because if you don't, you're putting your community at risk. I called my doctor to ask about, what am I hearing about this? Am I correct? Is what I'm reading online right? And she hung up on me. Unbelievable, right? So they're not all in it to tell you the truth. They may hang up on you and browbeat you. There were a few times I didn't ask for an exemption either, and there were a few times. Well, she tried to start saying, like, I don't even know why we're having this conversation, because you're my doctor and you're paid to have this conversation. So answer my questions, please. Holy smoke. What an insane ride this whole thing's been, right? Why do doctors have a chip on your shoulder? Like, you went to school for a little while, but I'm pretty sure you couldn't program a website. So you can do one thing, I can do one thing. Like, let's all get along, right? Eva Chivik is responding to Mark Holland, and she says, Minister Holland, as Minister of Health, have you ever explained to Canadians what mRNA stands for and how this miracle of science works? There's a difference between talking at Canadians and to Canadians. I encourage you and your colleagues to start talking to Canadians like adults, not at them like children. Thank you. And yeah, the Liberals are not communicating with people that they respect. They're talking down to people that they can barely tolerate, right? It's like watching somebody who dislikes you suffer having you at their dinner table or something to that effect. It's like, ooh, I'm just going to leave. It feels cold in here. True North is sharing this one. It's 2.5 minutes. And he's talking about privatized healthcare. And I'll tell you, the private healthcare I got at Shoaldice, absolutely top notch, worth every penny. I would do it again in a heartbeat. I hope I don't have to, but if I do have to, sometimes you get another hernia. I mean, like, whatever. But if I do have to, I'd go back there without hesitation. It was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. I'm a huge advocate for private, having a public-private partnership. A lot of Nordic countries, Scandinavian countries, I believe, have that. Even in the EU, I think they have a lot of that. Like, Germany's got a public-private kind of healthcare partnership, and you can buy your way into MRIs and all sorts of things to shorten up your wait time and all sorts of stuff, right? Like, there's all sorts of ways to monetize and like encourage lineups to go faster with a small amount of money, basically. And so it's interesting how Mark Holland catastrophizes the idea of private healthcare. Here we go.
There's a new poll that is done by Ipsos for Global that shows 42% of Canadians would consider going across the border to the U.S. to pay for healthcare, given the long wait times and staffing challenges that we've seen in this system. That's up 10 points since last year. What does this tell you about the state of our healthcare system, and how specifically are you going to address this?
Well, let's first say unequivocally that private care is not the answer. That going and paying your way out of your circumstance creates a terrible malady in our system. Because what it means is that private carriers will take the cases that are the most profitable and for folks who have money, leaving the public system eviscerated. And that is a circumstance we cannot allow.
Eviscerated. Your public system will completely crash. I don't know. I don't think about that. I don't think that that's true. The end of quality care for all of us, says Duncan. Canadians using their own money to seek care elsewhere. Newsflash, it's not just in the US, because the Canadian system is failing to provide them the care their tax dollars have already paid for. I've heard nightmare stories of people who went to a hospital, like a regular hospital, for surgery they needed, and it was a nightmare. And so, my Shouldice experience was top notch. And if somebody called me, instead of doing Shouldice, say I was in the regular system for the hernia operation, had they called me and said, hey, we would like you to come in for your hernia surgery, that would have filled me with nothing but dread. Like, I don't think I don't know that I would have gone. But the Shouldice thing, I felt confident that the doctors knew what they were doing. I felt confident that everybody was kind of like working in tandem for my benefit. And I thought, like, okay, they're not going to screw this up. They've got a long history of not screwing it up. So it's good. But man, I've heard terrible, awful stories of people in like a general hospital. Now, I've heard some good things too. I'm not trying to denigrate all hospitals and all hospital workers. There's quality of care, sure, but I think they're overwhelmed. And I think that there are situations where potentially like one bad apple ruins a bunch. So you get like one bad nurse and you have one bad experience on ward, and it like that one bad person, that one bad experience can really taint things, right? So who knows? Anyway, I'm not trying to say people who work in regular hospitals are bad. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the system is so overwhelmed that it's hard to deliver quality care in a situation where the care is so multidimensional and fluid, needing so many different things. I mean, how could we deliver quality care under these circumstances? I don't know. I don't think it's possible, honestly. So I don't think the deficit is on the people delivering the care. I think the deficit is on the people demanding that the system be up for this level of care, right? Like, it's like overwhelming a car wash, right? It's like you can get your car washed. It's just going to take you 9 hours sitting in this lineup because each car wash takes 5 minutes each, and there's nothing I'll do about it. Like, right? Like, and then having people be upset about that. It's like, well, that just is what it is. It just is what it is. And the fault is at the top. It's not at the service provider level. Okay. Let's talk about free speech. This story, he talks about Russia and he talks about the United Kingdom. I don't know the stats for Canada, how many people have been arrested for free speech, censored for free speech. Absolutely, 100%. Yes, lots of people have been censored in Canada for free speech, but they haven't been arrested and prosecuted like this. But I think this is coming if they get the online harms bill in, and they're gonna try. They're gonna try and put people in jail. They're gonna try and put anybody who's got content online. Still, somebody was saying it's in the bill that if the content remains online, doesn't matter if it was published before the bill came into effect. If it's still online, it's subject to the bill's rules and limitations. Wild, right? So take your whole catalog offline, Mark. Wild. Here is, I think his name's Constant. Anyway, he's well known. You'll recognize him. Here we go.
In Russia last year, 400 people were arrested for things that they said on social media. 400 people in Russia. Obviously, this country is very different. How many people do you think were arrested in Britain for things they said on social media last year?
Go on.
Take a guess.
I have no idea.
3,300.
Really? Arrested for what they'd said on social media? Yeah. What sort of things get you arrested?
Well, one example I give in my show is there was a young woman from Liverpool called Chelsea Russell, and people can look this up. Her friend was killed in a car crash, a 19-year-old woman, and she posted the lyrics of his favorite song on her Instagram. And there was a rap song, so the lyrics contained several instances of the N-word. She was arrested, prosecuted, found guilty, given 500 hours of community service and a fine, tagged, and for a year she was under 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. curfew.
My goodness.
In Britain.
In Britain.
In 2018. In Russia last...
Right? So coming to Canada soon. Here is our Minister of Justice and Attorney General. And he says, the message from parents and experts in Canada is clear. It's time to act to address the harms are facing online. He can't do social media, apparently. The Online Harms Act is our plan to hashtag protect kids online. And I think that's rich, coming from people who promote cutting off healthy sex organs in order to pursue something that's not possible. People who want to prevent children from having their parents stop them from changing genders. Again, something that's not possible. these people want drag queens to read stories to children, hand them over to groomers and pedophiles and things like that. But they want to protect children online. This whole thing is a farce, and everybody sees it. There isn't anybody who is believing the Liberals and their lies about this Online Harm Act. I'll play this first minute. It's meant to be an emotional tearjerker, and meant to play on your emotions to manufacture consent about what's going on. Here we go.
I'm here at the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, and I'm here with Leanna McDonald.
For years, our agency has worked with families of missing or sexually abused and exploited children. But when the internet came along and technology increased, it rapidly changed the way children were being victimized across the country.
Today, I'm asking anyone who can make change happen to think on Danny's story and all of the other children no longer with us.
So they wrap the bill in, you want to protect people from being human trafficked. You want to protect children. You want to protect them from online harms and people who are, misusing the internet to traffic children. But then they sneak in the back door all sorts of different limitations on free speech and ways to put people in jail for the free speech violations, as if they were causing human trafficking or child pornography or anything like that. And that's crazy town. People don't support that. It's a bait and switch, and people have noticed, and now news people, everybody's talking about it because it puts them all at risk. Because you can't publish anything, and all of your historical everything is up for anybody in the public to say, I think he might write hate speech in the future, and now you're under house arrest and you're in prison for pre-crime, right? And you've got more restrictions than Paul Bernardo, man. Like, you can't go play ice hockey. You're under house arrest. Here's the news article from The Spectator. Canada's Orwellian online harms bill. There's a way of getting children to eat something they dislike. Medicine, for example, where you bury the goods in a spoonful of jam. Justin Trudeau's Liberals are trying this method with their online harms bill, C-63, but it may not go down as well as they'd hoped. The stated intent of the bill is something every decent person supports: protecting children from online victimization. Yet behind this noble aim lurks the thought police. This is no exaggeration. This legislation authorizes house arrest and electronic tagging for a person considered likely to commit a future crime. It's right there in the text. If a judge believes that there are reasonable grounds to fear a future hate crime, the as of yet innocent party can be sentenced to house arrest, complete with electronic tagging, mandatory drug testing, and communication bans. Failure to cooperate nets you an additional year in jail. If that's not establishing a thought police, I don't know what it is. Failure to cooperate. Yeah, if you don't cooperate, that's a paddling, right? Like, jeepers creepers. What is a hate crime? Well, pending. We'll define it as we see fit on a case-by-case basis. Anything Mark says is a hate crime. What is a hate crime? According to the bill, it is a communication expressing detestation or vilification. But clarified, the government, this is not the same as disdain or dislike, or speech that discredits, humiliates, hurts, or offends. Unfortunately, the government didn't think to include a grander scheme of setting out the relatively acceptability of the words offend, hurt, humiliate, discredit, dislike, disdain, detest, and vilify. Under Bill C-63, you can be put away for life for a crime whose legal existence hangs on the distinction between dislike and detest. Right? It's all up to interpretation. Who's going to interpret it? Well, a liberal judge, right? This impartial judge. Welcome to Canada. It's very, very concerning, right? And there's more in that article as well, if you're interested. David Mulrooney is highlighting this as well. When Canada gets mentioned in the foreign press, everybody gets on board. And he says, Canada's Orwellian online harm bill, is it possible that the beautiful and once civilized country of Canada, leading politicians seriously want to punish people for crimes they might but actually haven't committed? Yes, that's possible. That's happening because it seems like Justin Trudeau and his Liberals hate Canada and they wish we were more like Ukraine. It's like having being in a blended family or something like that, and everybody hates you, but they really like the Ukrainian sister, right? Like, you're like, man, if I was only more like her. John, or Ukrainian. Home prices Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful